Hi everybody, Brian from Variable Traders here. It's the weekend, Saturday, October 22nd, and this is the weekend video, of course. We'll take a look at what happened last week, and then we'll look ahead and see what we got coming this week. And certainly it's a big lineup of earnings reports that are coming out, so let's get down to it. So let's start out with a weekend review here, the 17th. We had yet another rip your face off rally on Friday with that hints from the Fed that they may be pausing, or at least pausing the hiking, or at least ratcheting back some of their rate hikes after maybe December. Obviously, investors and traders love the thought of that. But on the flip side, inflation, I don't see any signs that it's coming down. I think that there's still a lot of supply chain issues. It's limiting supply. And basically, that's just giving companies an opportunity to raise prices because they can. And I've seen lots of examples of companies that are raising prices more than just to cover their increased costs that we've seen, like energy costs, etc. And they're doing it, if you know anything about economics, supply and demand. If there's more demand than supply, companies will raise prices, and that's what they're doing. And I think that's why we're seeing better than expected earnings reports that are coming out. I think a lot of people had some pretty downside views of what we're going to get with earnings, but again, over 70% of the companies are coming in with better earnings. Part of that is, expectations were lower, but I think also companies are continuing to take advantage of the ability to raise their prices, which goes, of course, right to the bottom line. Indexes, of course, Dow was up for the third week in a row, and you can see all the indexes there well in the green for the week. Half of those gains on pretty much all of those indexes occurred on Friday. So the energy sector still, I think it's the only green sector in the markets for the entire year, but energy and technology up again this week. Staples and healthcare, everything was green, but they were the smallest gainers on the week. The 2-year kind of flattened out a bit. We didn't get much of a change, and the 10-year did move up to close that difference between the 2s and the 10s. So US dollar moved lower, I think due to the some of the other central banks trying to shore up their currencies, like the yen. And anyway, Bitcoin, I just keep saying it's still hanging around this 19,000 level. So that's kind of what happened last week. So before we get looking at some charts here, quick ad for my book on Amazon as always. Profiting as an Active Trader is my latest book. Guide to money management rules, strategies, and the routines of active stock, and a little bit of options as well. So there it is if you're interested. So let's take a look at some charts. As always, like to start out with the treasuries because that's one of the areas that investors are always focusing in. You can see here on the 2-year, we didn't make much of a move here, maybe up just a fraction on the week. And again, we seem to be topping out a little bit here. Again, investors and traders hoping that maybe that the Fed, this area of interest rates on the 2-year might be sort of a area where things will top out. 10 years still moving up. I think the target rate's 4.5%, so we still have a ways to go here, but interest rates still going up, momentum still moving to the upside. We've had a nice steady run here ever since we had this little pullback in through the summer, and just continuing up. We are getting pretty overbought here, and again, probably getting close to an area where we might see some topping action on the treasuries, which would be good for the markets. The transports, we're just range bound here right now. You can see here this 13,000 level. We do have UPS, reporting this week, and it'll be interesting to see if they come out with the same kind of warnings, dire predictions on the economy, global economy, as FedEx did already. They sort of warned of a pending global recession based on their numbers. And the other interesting thing that's going on that I was reading this week is there seems to be a drop in e-commerce, which might have an impact on Amazon, which is also reporting this week. So interesting. We'll see what happens and what kind of comments we get out of UPS, and that should have a very interesting impact on the rest of the market, depending on what they say in their earnings call. But you can see here we're range bound right now. There's really not much momentum one way or another. And again, it's going to depend a lot on what UPS says in the coming days. The Dow, all these indexes had a really big day on Friday on those, and that's comments by Mary Daly, one of the Fed members. And you can see here, market really took off and broke out. The Dow broke out to a new high right up at the 50-day moving average on the daily. Momentum building to the upside. You can see momentum indicators. The stochastics are turning as well. Again, the only caveat is we do have a lot of high-profile companies that are reporting this week, and that could have a pretty significant impact on where the indexes go. For instance, we've got UPS, as I said already, CAT, another big Dow component, and yeah, we'll see what kind of comments they make in terms of guidance, etc. And that could again turn the markets south, depending on what they say, or if they have some good comments, it'll provide further impetus to continue higher. So big week this week, and lots coming down the pipe. Again, Qs on the day, really a nice outside candle, engulfing candle here. Took out these prior highs earlier in the week. And you can see here we're back up through the 200-day moving average on the Qs. Momentum seems to be picking up to the upside. Again, stochastics turning. Always like to see this indicator here. The fast-moving line crossing the slow-moving line usually indicates that a bottom has been put in. And the SPY, sort of same comments here. You can see momentum starting to build. We're above 50 on the RSI. Again, stochastics already turned back here. And you can see what happens when they turn and these averages cross. Get a nice move back up. On a week, again, we are starting to build to the upside. Stochastics on a weekly starting to build higher. This could be foretelling a rally into the end of the year. Again, depending on what comments are going to come out this week. The IWM, sort of a bit of an inverted head and shoulders, but definitely a higher low here. And again, a nice day on Friday. Again, on a weekly, we're turning on the stochastics. So again, it could be this could be the bottom that everybody's been looking for. Volatility, you can see here that's another good sign. I mean, volatility has dropped below 30. We are sort of leaking off here, and again, a positive sign for the markets that volatility may be starting to turn downward, which is good for the bulls. Another thing that might be good for the bulls is the dollar. The dollar's really comments from some of the companies that are have a lot of interest in foreign companies, revenue from foreign companies. Strength of the dollar really impacts their bottom line. So if we do get a bit of more of a pullback on the dollar, that will definitely be good for earnings on these multinational companies. You can see here we're kind of in a range, and we seem to be kind of pulling back into this range here. If you draw a trend line on the top and a trend line here on the bottom, there's a lot of room to come back down here on the pull back further on the dollar index. Again, another positive for the bulls. And let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin just seems to be hanging around this 19,000 level, tries to break out and comes back. So that's the daily on it, and we're still, as of right now, about 19,200. That's about where we're trading, and you can see on a weekly basis, really very little movement at all here on the Bitcoin. Let's take a look at some stuff might have on watch here for the coming week. Again, it's going to be a week to kind of wait and see what's going on. Apple reporting Thursday, and again it broke out of this this sort of range here. We're at the very top end of the range, and again it'll be very interesting to hear what Apple has to say and how it reacts to earnings. But pretty decent day on Friday. Not bad volume, sort of average. Momentum still sort of building to the upside here. Stochastics looking good as well. Maine Foods, I got in back here and I got out up in this area. I'm now looking at a pullback, maybe in this into some of these moving averages for Maine, and it'll get long again. It's a very low it's actually a pretty low float stock, and it doesn't trade on big volume, so you have to be very careful about where you pick your entries and exits on this one. GDX, gold, kind of noting here, a bit of a head and shoulders pattern. Here's your shoulder, here's your other shoulder, here's your head, and of course this is probably the neckline up here around 26. Gold does put in a bit of a double bottom if you look at the shoulder. But again, maybe just range bound, but certainly possible to trade against this lower band 23 level, which seemed to hold last pullback. OIH, these are the drillers. We had a really good report from Schlumberger this week, which drove the price of the OIH, which is the Van Eck Vectors Oil Services ETF up. And I think Halliburton's going to report this week, I believe Tuesday. So that's something to watch on Halliburton. I think they're going to come out with some good numbers too. Certainly lots of demand for oil, and when there's good demand for oil, there's really good demand for these drillers, and profits should be good. So up here is kind of area of prior resistance around 310, so has a lot more room to run here on OIH. So you could play that. It's a fairly expensive stock, so you could play with options. If you're an options trader, sell some downside puts, buy some upside calls, or do a call spread. So buy a call and then buy another, or sell another call higher to offset the cost of it. All sorts of ways you can play that. More expensive stock. Tesla seems to have put in a bottom here. We did have an earnings report last week. It did seem to hold this 200 level that I was watching. I actually sold some 200 puts after the earnings report and just let them expire worthless at the end of the week here. And so we had a nice day Friday, which was helpful for my position. No chance it was going to drop below 200. So yeah, anyway, but it does look like Tesla's put in a double bottom here, and I think the road is possibly higher from here. Certainly 200 is a level to watch now. Still have a little bit of this URA. It's Uranium ETF, and I still think that uranium has some good potential. And also, I believe they're still, yeah, they haven't done anything. Russia's a big processor of uranium. They still haven't moved to ban them from exporting that material. So if that happens, then the price should go up. But I'm not counting on that. I'm just counting on good demand. And the XLE energy, big move on the week. Green on the year. I think it's the only sector that's actually green, but looks like the trend is your friend, and the trend continues to be higher, although we did get pretty extended here on Friday, so maybe looking for a pullback touch of 84 on XLE. If we get a pullback to there, that would be an area where you break out, you check back to where you broke out from, and then you'd head higher. So that could be an area where you might want to look at taking a long trade. So that's it, everybody. All right, wrapping things up here. There's your levels from the Dow, Q, SPY, and IWM with support and resistance. Economics events this week. I think I've already mentioned some of the stuff. This Monday, S&P Manufacturing Index, kind of a read of how the manufacturing sector is looking. Consumer confidence. Again, we had a reaction in market last time we got some of these numbers come out, so we'll be watching that on Wednesday morning, especially if you're day trading. And Friday, this is the much watched PCE inflation measure, which of course the Fed really do focus on in terms of looking at what is going on. So that will be a big number that'll come out on Friday. And as far as earnings goes, like I've been saying here, it's going to be a huge week next week. We've got all the biggies coming out here next week. We've got Microsoft, Google, Visa, Boeing, Meta, Ford, Cat, Apple, Amazon, Intel, a lot of big cap companies, high profile companies coming out next week with earnings. So there should be lots of reason for some more volatility, just depending on what they say and especially what guidance they give. So hang on to your hats. Should be another volatile week. And again, enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. Hopefully we will see you in the room. We start live at 8 a.m. on Monday morning, live on YouTube, and then of course with our members trading the market open at 9:30. So hope to see you then. Take care and have a good one.